let's get into it. I'm still on the Sermon on the Mount. It's been like a year, but I'm climbing this mountain. Let's get away from that difficult Greek word. That's not that difficult, but we'll get into. So let me get the topic. Okay. Retaliation. Who knows that word? Retaliation. It's probably a French word because what's the French for retaliation? Retaliation. Probably. All the Sean words are French words. Impossible. Impossible. So there's your quick French lesson. If it's an able word, just add a French accent and you'll have a French word. That's how to survive Paris. Okay. So now I've taught you all my French words. You can relax. Retaliation. Have you ever heard the word? Are you guilty of it? Please do this. Okay, let's not lie to each other. Have you ever read that part? It's probably something you've read before. It's not that infamous or infamous. It's a part we all know. Let's quickly run through it because this will probably be the best part of the sermon is me just reading the Bible. You can open at Matthew 5, verse 38. 5:38. I'm going to read out of the Most Holy Translation, the ESV. All the other translations will be sanctified one day. It's Jesus reading or speaking, and he's speaking to us. No, he's speaking to a Jewish crowd. So now you have to put on your Jewish hat once again. You remember your Jewish hat? Johannes, his Jewish hat as a visor, but it counts as a Jewish hat. And why I'm saying this is probably from most of the things you read in Matthew, this is one of the most context-laden, specifically to Jews, things he's speaking about. So you need to get into the Jewish mindset. Okay, so it's not a modern-day Jew. It's a Jew 2023 plus years ago. It's a Jew of that time. Okay, so what does a Jew of that time know? Have they been to school? They know how to play the Jewish organ, you know? A till. That's probably all the Jews can do is play a till. We call that a Jewish organ. They love the sound. When you ring it, it makes ding. To all my Jewish friends out there, sorry. So they don't know much about worldly wisdom, but they know about the first 5 books in the Bible. So, and they know about what they've been taught in synagogue. The most important scriptures probably. They won't be doing all the boring stuff, but they'll work through the important stuff. And they will talk about the important stuff. But by heart, they'll know the first 5 books. So Jesus has a connection point with them, and he speaks in language they understand, not in language we normally understand. Okay, so that's why I need you to put on your Jewish hats, your kadots. You have heard it said. So what have they heard it said? An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I say to you, do not resist the one who is evil. But if anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to him also the other. And if anyone would sue you and take your tunic, let him also have your cloak as well. And if anyone forces you to go a mile, go with him 2 miles. Give to the one who begs from you, and do not refuse the one who would borrow from you. Okay. So remember when I said we have a very Matthew thing going on, and it's normally he does it in parts of 3. So this is one of the parts of 3. It's the slap, the cloak, the walk. Okay, so that's his 3 explanations he gives to you. He says an eye for an eye, you've heard it said. How often have you heard an eye for an eye? Is it a common usage? Is it in our normal vernacular? Nice word, Joe? Is it in our common tongue? Do we use it daily? An eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth? Okay, so it's something we know, but something we don't use. But it's very common for them. Do you know where we find that? Like I told you, they know the first 5 books really well. So let's go to the first 5 books. We need context. So it will be Exodus 21, verse 24. And my thingy goes, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, hand for a hand, foot for a foot, burn for a burn, wound for a wound, stripe for a stripe. Okay, so they add like an extra. If you hit my car, I hit your car. If you take my parking spot, I take your parking spot. You know, they just... but it's interesting. So that's like a law, and we get it. But why? Okay, let's delve deeper. Leviticus 24, verse 17. It goes, fracture for a fracture, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. Whatever injury has given a person shall be given, shall be given to him. Then it goes on and on and on. It's like, do you hear the retaliation theme? If you do this, I do this. But there's something interesting we don't see. Okay, let's do the third one. Deuteronomy 19, verse 21. Deuteronomy for the English people. Deuteronomy. It's like Numbers 2. Is it American? It's not English, it's American. Sorry to my American friends. Deuteronomy. Numbers 2. I would have called it Numbers 2. Your eye shall not pity. That's weird. It shall be life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot. Okay. So in the 5 books we have, that's the law. In the 5 books, that's the law. We get this thing repeated. Why? It's a good question. Why? So when he says you've heard it said, they have heard it said multiple times. And it is part of their vernacular, part of their everyday culture. To say an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, a foot for a foot, a burn for a burn, a stripe for a stripe, a fracture for a fracture. Do you know how funny that is? Okay. So Lubin and I, we're walking, and all of a sudden, Lubin just freaks out and he punches me in the face. And he like fractures my jaw. And I go like, Lubin, you fractured my jaw. We go to the doctor says, no, your jaw's been fractured. Now we get like this court set up where I take Lubin to the court and I say, he's fractured my jaw. And the judge is like, that's cool, let's just fracture his jaw. Then everything's fine. That's exactly what is being said. So you have like an accident, you're walking and someone's cow steps on your foot and you lose a toe and you're like, that's okay, it's okay. I have the law on my side. I'm going to get the law and I'm going to get my cow and I'm going to step on his foot with my cow and we just cut off a toe. That sounds weird, huh? So it's as soon as you start chewing the verse, it's weird. But can you see there's no escalation? That's something you need to pick up. There's an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, but there's no escalation. Have you ever seen a gangster film or a mafia film? Oh, you kill my people, I kill all your people. You know that thing. It's like you kill one of my people, I kill 10 of your people. We call that escalation. It's not just an eye for an eye. So that's like the normal thing, but the law was brought in to say, let's not go there. Let's not pour out the baby with the bathwater. Why? And it's interesting, as soon as you start to read it, you get a few good Old Testament commentaries. InterVarsity Press is a really nice one. And there's like a dude, a really old dude, before Moses dude. He was an Assyrian guy, and he was a king, and he was very wise according to them. So at one time, he was sacrificing to the fire god, and the fire god imbued all this knowledge unto him, and he wrote it down, and these were the musings, the writings of Hammurabi. So mental note to yourself, Hammurabi. It's a weird name. But Hammurabi was the first one to do this, to write it up. So it's pre-Moses. It's not even Moses who wrote it. Actually, we should quote, Moses should put in asterisks there, bibliography, the writings of Hammurabi. It wasn't him. But it was a normal thing for them. Why? Because we need to stop the escalation. Because it's normal for us to escalate. Who agrees with me it's normal to escalate? That's what people do. And then we get this thing where we say a better thing in culture will be not to escalate, but to pay back fairly. And now we have a thing, if I go to a shop and I slip on the floor and I break my femur bone, we're going to get the manager out and we're going to let him slip on the floor and break his femur bone as well. Because they're liable. No, he's going to pay me punitive damages, right? He's going to pay me. He has insurance for this thing, public liability. So we have changed this eye for an eye to an eye for something of the similar value. So it's changed a bit, but it's still there. And we have a judge that says this is fair, this isn't fair. Okay, so what has changed in the law? Nothing. We've just made it monetized. We've changed it from something to something else. So it hasn't changed, but we still have a ceiling. There's still something that stops us from escalating it. Yeah, you drive into my car, I clean out your whole family. You'll have nothing. And have you ever heard people say that? When I'm finished with you, you won't even have the clothes on your back. You've heard that. So even that's still normal thinking of people. You hurt me, I'm going to really hurt you. Have you seen children? Like toddlers. My boy is 2 years older than his sister. And he has this taunting spirit which I cannot relieve him from, where he just irritates her. But he really intentionally irritates her. And then she gets mad and she grits on her teeth and she starts shaking. And then I normally tell him, run, because it's going down. Because she's not going to taunt him. She's going to hit him and bite him and go all redhead on him. She's a furious little one. We should have called her Aiden, Little Fire. She's just full of fire. So she has no ceiling. She just retaliates. So I now have to teach her, let's not go there. Let's not go there. Let's just bring it down. In our human nature, it's normal for us to escalate. Who here hasn't ever felt something was done wrong to them? They want to escalate. It's normal. It's normal. So now Jesus steps into this thinking of a people that are being oppressed by a Roman government that is taxing them heavily, making life difficult for them, pushing down their pride because they are a very proud country, and making things difficult for them. So we're in this climate of frustration. And the frustration is going to a point where they want a redeemer, but the redeemer should be a military redeemer to relieve them from this military oppression. So we have frustrated people, and Jesus is speaking to frustrated people. But frustrated people who think if we stay within the ceiling, it's fine. And Jesus comes and explains to them the kingdom. And the kingdom sounds as follows. You have heard it said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I say to you, do not resist the one who is evil. Sheesh. And after he said that, he's going to give 3 examples of how not to resist an evil one. So what does not resisting sound to you like? What does it sound like? How does it feel to you? You've been wronged now, I say don't resist. How do you feel? Does it sit well in your stomach? Let's escalate this in your emotional minds as well and say something's been done wrong to someone you really love. Because sometimes it's easy to grin and bear it if it happens to you. Let's now say something happens to someone you love. How do you feel? Are you boiling inside? Are you marinating in the juices of anger? Okay, so I want you to think like normal people, not Christianese people, normal people. But I say to you, do not resist. And that's that beautiful Greek word we'll come to now. Have you ever read there's a theme in the Bible that says, vengeance is mine, says the Lord. I will repay the evil one. Soon there will be a day when all who are unrighteous will be judged before the Lord. Okay, so you see there's another theme as well. It's a theme where we say, okay, we don't have the ability to judge fairly. So let's take this to a fair judge. And the fair judge will judge fairly. Okay, so no longer me that's going to give the judgment, but a fair and righteous judge. Okay, who likes that? That's a difficult thing to do as well, because sometimes we feel like, God, is this how you're going to pay back? How often do you read in the Bible? You read it in Habakkuk, you read it in Habakkuk. You read where he says, how long will you let these evil people run around crazy? You read it in the Psalms, how long will the rich and unrighteous go forth? They grow and multiply, and I wither like a field blossom. You have all this flowery language where people are frustrated. And still you have this theme where, don't you judge, I'll judge. So it's like this difficult space we find ourselves in. We know what's right, but it's difficult to do what's right. Okay. Now, my introduction was really long, but we need to feel the frustration. Okay. We get it in a lot of verses. Let's quickly do Psalm 94, verse 1. I'll turn there because there's a lot of Psalms. 94, verse 1. It says, O Lord, God of vengeance, O God of vengeance, shine forth. Rise up, O judge of the earth. Repay the proud for what they deserve. O Lord, how long shall the wicked exalt? They pour out their arrogant words, all evildoers boast. They crush your people, O Lord, and afflict your heritage. They kill the widow and the sojourner and murder the fatherless. And they say, the Lord does not see, the God of Jacob does not perceive. My psalm, just to sum up what we've been chewing on, selahing in our heads about the frustration of people getting away with stuff and we having the inability to react. Because you know why you get frustrated? Because of the inability to act. Have you ever been frustrated? Parents of children, if they don't do what you want them to do, why are you frustrated? Because you have an inability to stop their actions. So the inability is what actually irritates you. Because they keep on doing what they're not supposed to be doing, but I have no power to stop them to keep on doing what they're not supposed to be doing. Okay, so, and that's in a lot of people. So feel the frustration. You get this beautiful thing where David was in the cave and Saul came into the cave to relieve himself. And while he was in the lavatory, the bathroom, while he was busy, David did not do anything to him. He just let him go. And why did David say he just let him go? He honored him because God chose him. So he could have rightfully be the one that took the vengeance, the judgment upon himself and handled the problem because he was unfairly followed. But he decided to do something different. He decided to respond differently. Okay, so now we get into a theme. Romans, Paul is beautiful in this concept. He grew this Matthew thing in all of the books he ever wrote. He just grew it and expounded it. Romans 12 verse 19. 12 verse 19. Romans 12 verse 19. Beloved, never avenge yourselves, but leave it to the wrath of God. For it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. To the contrary, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him something to drink. For by doing so, you will heap burning coals on his head. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. So now we're building up a contrary thinking. So Paul was chewing on this verse that Jesus said, and he was thinking, and he thought to himself, okay, I should expound this. I should chew upon this. Let's go back to that Matthew thing, verse 39. Do not resist the one who is evil, but if anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to him also the other. First one. If anyone would sue you for your tunic, let him have your cloak as well. And if anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with him 2 miles. Now, normally when this verse or these 3 subjects are explained, we know a lot about the third one, right? The extra mile one. That's mostly the common one. But do you know about the others? Because they're the interesting ones, because they build a certain thinking. Now, let's quickly do, is it becoming lighter on your screen as well? Okay, I can't supersize this anymore. Do you see that Greek word there? It's there, antihistamine. It sounds like antihistamine, you know? It's really close to it, but it's not antihistamine. It's antihistamine. Okay. So that's what resist means. What does resist mean? That's the first question we should ask. Now, that word is a compound word, and it is made up out of 2 words. What would be the first word? Anti. That's easy. What does anti mean? Against, different, not the same. So what does resistance look like? How can we use normal examples of resistance? How can I resist? So resistance can look like someone throwing a petrol bomb into a building and it's burning. Do you agree that's resistance? We call some things a resistance movement. Okay? And resisting can be what? Someone wants to open a door and you just hold on to the door and you smile. That's a passive resistance. There's no violence there, but it's passive aggressive. That's resistance as well. So resist, we must build on the word. Okay. So resist, I like this. It says there, to stand against, in example, to oppose. Oppose is a word opposite, to be opposite of. Okay? So let's go and build up the word even further. Now you get the anti, and now you get the histamine. And then that's not the antihistamine. The histamine is to stand. To stand opposite. Okay? Are we now building the word resist? It's not just to do nothing. It is to stand, but to stand opposite what is being done to you. Okay? So now let's rethink what he said. He said, you have heard it said, an eye for an eye. I want you to be opposite. you've heard it said, a tooth for a tooth. I'd like you to stand, but stand opposite. Okay. It's interesting. We resist is starting to build in our heads. It's no longer a passive thing, it's a very active thing. Okay. We've been called to be a resistance army, it looks like. I wrote here the word anti-hestime, to prevent evil from going forward, to stand, but in an opposite way to culture. Because Jesus said, you have heard it said, so it was culturally acceptable. And now he's saying, I want you to stand, not lay down, to stand, but opposite to culture. Okay, so now we have to think, why would we stand opposite to culture? Because we are not of this earth. This is not our kingdom. We are bringing the kingdom, and the kingdom has certain rules. And one of the rules is how to stand. It's not to let things go. Because we can easily just say, I'm not going to get involved. Jesus says, get involved. Stand, but stand opposite. Don't retaliate tooth for a tooth, eye for an eye. If something is done to you, respond, but respond oppositely. So that's an interesting thing you now have to chew, because now it's all of a sudden not a let it just happen to me. It's now, okay, it's happening to me, I need to respond. And now that is debilitating to some people, because now you feel like, how can I respond? What am I allowed to do? It's a good question. I must respond, but how should I respond? Resist, how should I resist? If someone is mistreating you, or is saying you down, or is just belittling you, please don't throw a petrol bomb at their house. That's not opposite resisting. That's escalating. What did Paul say? Do not repay evil with evil. What did Jesus say? Do not repay evil with evil. Okay, so resisting, in the first thing, when you resist, you must check the box. This isn't for me. This isn't for evil. I can't resist if it's for me, and I can't resist if it's for evil. Because it's for me, I'm going to have vengeance, retaliate. But if it's for the kingdom, it's something else. And when you have something to stand for, then you must know, is it worth it? So you can often say, this isn't how we're supposed to be handled, or this isn't how we're supposed to be treated. That's nice until you do something. But you won't do anything if you don't believe in it. Okay, so it's a two-part thing. You need to believe in the kingdom before you stand for the kingdom. So let's go into the 3 examples. I wrote here something I think is applicable. Respond in an opposite manner. Respond in a manner of one from another kingdom. Okay. Now, Craig Keener is a brilliant guy. He writes like a lot of commentaries. We have this InterVarsity Press Bible commentary of the New Testament. He wrote the whole thing. So he's like a really interesting guy and really smart. So whenever you want like a commentary about the New Testament, his is very complete. Okay, and it's not thick, it's like this. So it's doable for the whole New Testament. So we need to go into slapping. For me to slap someone, there's going to be movement, you agree? It's not like a Jedi mind trick. You have to like do something. So I'm going to slap this invisible person in front of me. So where do I slap them if I'm a Jew? On the right cheek, okay? So this is my right cheek. This is my right hand, ne? So I'm going to slap him. Who sees the problem? Okay, so if this is my right cheek and I slap him like this, and all of a sudden I'm this guy, and I'm being slapped like this, what cheek is being hit? Okay, the left cheek. Okay, you've seen, Luban, kaufela. Klokwan. So I'm slapping Luban. Oh, ah! That connected the lines, huh? So right hand, left cheek. That was not the Jewish culture. I slap on the right cheek. Why? Because when slapping someone on the right cheek, it is let's quickly read this beautiful verse. It is an insult, not a severe harming. That's why, remember, I'm slapping him, not hitting him with the fist. I'm slapping him. And Krekina says it's an insult, not a severe harming. Now, how can I slap his right cheek? Backhand. So now I'm going like, Pacha! Can you see that? Are you now mentally in it? Thank you, Luban, for your cheeks. Such lovely, soft cheeks. Why am I slapping you with my right hand and not my left? Because it's mostly your dominant hand. It's the hand you do things. Like this is a very queer bar fight. Okay. This is a right hand. I slap someone, I slap them. So, do you know what's interesting? When slapping someone with the back of the hand, what do I as Jew think about him? And you can read these interesting studies. I have a few of them here. It's 10 pages long. About being slapped on the cheek and how they have all these writings in the Midrash and all the different Jewish books about when I have a problem with someone and I want to dominate or belittle them. I choose my right hand because it's the dominant one. I'm being dominant. Listen to all the words. And I am hitting him, but I'm treating him not with the open hand, but with the back hand, because I'm not treating him as an equal. I'm treating him as a lesser person. So normally when you were being slapped by someone in public, it would be the right hand, backhand, because he is belittling you. He's not counting you as an equal. You see that now? Okay. So this was normal legal recourse for an offense. So this was like a lawy thing you would do. In more modern times, we had these English gentlemen, they would take off their gloves and slap someone. It's like these things came up in history. It's not like it went away. It's still there. And we still have, it's like when you fight someone and they slap you, it's belittling. Like you slap the backside of a donkey. You don't slap a person. It's just belittling. Slapping is an insult of honor and dignity. They're not backing down is not stepping down from dominance. Because Jesus says, don't back down, then the cheek. So what's the first thing he's telling you? Don't back down. Don't accept dominance from someone who is insulting you. Can you hear that? But remember in your non-mafia brain, remember in your Christian brain, we're not supposed to retaliate like other people, and we're not supposed to escalate. We're supposed to be like antihistamine. We're supposed to be different from the culture. To stand, but to stand differently. Okay. So don't think, I'm standing this guy, hy sal my slaan, hy sal val net daar waar hy is. It's not that thinking, it's a different thinking. Okay. They're not backing down, is not stepping down from dominance. You say, slap me again, but this time you turn the other cheek, and what does that force him to do? To slap you with the right hand, but the open hand. And this is how you would slap an equal. So if someone was of equal stature to you in their time, you would slap them with the open hand. If you would slap a slave, it will not be with an open hand. It will be with a backhand. Because you're belittling him, you're dominating them. And Jesus said, don't stand back, please get slapped again. And if you've seen these slapping competitions, I don't know if I'll stand for two. But Jesus says, do it again. It's not going to be nice. Now you're going to have 2 red cheeks. And your dignity is not going to be nice because it's not nice to be slapped. But what are you forcing the other person to do? To treat you like an equal. If you have a problem with me, have a problem with me as an equal. I'll stand, but I'll stand differently. And if you have a problem, treat me equally. I'm not less. I'm equal. And you're not standing up for yourself, you're standing up for the kingdom. When in the kingdom, we say we are treated as equals. Can't diminish us. And have you ever read some of these Chinese missionaries, how they were treated and how they stood for what they were treated? And most of these defiances were done what? Standing up. Because that is how we are allowed to defy. It's not for myself. It's for something that was put in me. What was put in us? We were created in His image. What does Psalm say? I was beautifully and wonderfully made, knit together in my mother's womb. And my soul knows it very well. Christians should not be, there's a beautiful Afrikaans term and it starts with yummy, Yanni. They should not be people that are easily oppressed. We're not oppressed. We'll stand, but we'll stand differently. Opposites, antihistamine. Okay, next time you use antihistamine, just remind yourself, I'm standing against normal culture, but I'm standing. I always think of that song, I'm still standing, standing after all these years. We should sing that in church. Turning the cheek is not doing nothing. You are requiring to slap you again, but this time with the open hand, this is a slap of an equal. Offer them a chance again to slap you, but as an equal. You are forcing them to re-evaluate who you are. You're forcing them to re-evaluate who you are. This is who I say I am. And as soon as I think differently, you are going to treat me differently. But if I do not think differently, I'm standing for what is right. Okay. It's beautiful. I think in the one commentary I read, it said there, you are declaring, I'm taking my dignity back. My honor is not given to me by you, but by God. It's just a declaration of, I know where I come from, so I'm standing. Even though it hurts, I'll still be standing. Okay. So, not resisting in kind, but still resisting. Okay. The cloak is an interesting one. Who's ever heard the full explanation of a cloak? That's like awesome. So Corné and I, we were reading through the Bible, and normally it looks like this. I'm sprawled out on the bed, half asleep, and she just reads the Bible aloud. I really like it because she just reads and reads and reads. And she reads the Bible aloud, and then she asks me a lot of questions. And through the being awake and not being awake, I answer questions as far as I know. And sometimes I don't know it, I must confess. I don't know everything, but my wife says I think I know everything. So this is a juxtaposition. It says, when someone forces you to give them your tunic, let them have your cloak as well. So what is a cloak and what is a tunic? This is a tunic. It's the soft woolen thing close to my body. And the cloak would be the bigger, harder, gruffy thing that would not be nice, against your skin. It's the not nice part. Who's ever worn a woolen cloak, like one of these army things? They're not nice. But if you wear something soft under it, they're nice because they protect you from the water, the heat, the rain, the cold, the what's. It's their responsibility. So she was asking me this difficult question, and I'm like, a cloak means like it's something you sleep in, it's important. And she was not very impressed with my sleepy answer. So she took the commentary we use and looked who wrote the commentary and found his email on the internet and emailed him. And she started a long email discussion with Victor Matthews, not the Victor we know, but Victor H. Matthews, who is, I think he's the dean of Missouri's religional studies, and he has like a PhD in Old Testament stuff, and she's just asking him, so Victor, because she gets answers always. She should become like an investigator. But she gets answers, and sent her a 10-page answer about a cloak. So if anyone wants a 10-page answer about what a cloak means in the Old Testament, here it is. And it means a lot of things, actually. So I'm not going to give you the 10-page version. I'm going to give you the 3-line version. So in Leviticus, in Exodus, even easier to pronounce, Exodus 22, you see how much work it is to understand what we're reading. We often just read and think we can apply it to how we think we can apply it. There's work in it as well, and there's a lot of resources, but there's work in it. If you ever take your neighbor's cloak, Exodus 22 verse 26, if you ever take your neighbor's cloak in a pledge, you shall return it to him before the sun goes down, for that is his only covering, and it is his cloak for his body. In what else shall he sleep? And if he cries to me, I will hear him, for I am compassionate. You shall not revile God, nor cause a ruler or curse a ruler of your people. Now, it's interesting that God has a problem with someone taking someone's cloak. He's like, in the law, early on in Exodus 22, it's still fresh, he's telling them you're not allowed to take someone's cloak. You can take it in a pledge, and normally a pledged work, I'm going to work for you. Then you hand your cloak to the ones whose field you will be tending. And at 4 o'clock, when you knock off, when you punch your card, when you clock out, then you get your cloak back. And sometimes you work money back, which you've loaned from him. And still, even though you owe him money, he's not allowed to take your cloak. So all of a sudden, we are growing an understanding about a cloak. But he can take your tunic and get away with it because no one's seeing your tunic. These silly Jews. This law specifically prevented exploitation because it said it was his only covering, and in what else shall he sleep? Like, they did not have duvets, okay? They had cloaks. And normally you were taking the cloak from someone who couldn't afford a nice place. So it was their only thing. If someone is in that mind of taking a cloak, give you a shirt. If someone is in the mind of taking your, shirt, give your cloak. Now, if I'm in public and you are, because this is a lawyery thing, if I'm in public and you are taking my tunic and I say, no, wait, take my cloak as well. How dressed am I now? I'm now scantily clad. I think that would be the nice wording of it. I'm now naked. Do you think that draws attention? That draws attention. To what are you drawing attention? It's interesting how this law was circumvented by the Jews. They're not allowed to take your cloak, but they'll take your tunic. They're allowed to take the clothes off your back. Do you know that modern saying? And what are you doing when you're offering your cloak as well? What are you exposing? An injustice. You're exposing an injustice. But what is it costing you? You now have to stand there with your beer pants. You now have to be vulnerable to everyone to expose an injustice. It's nice, huh? So first we are re-evaluating our worth. We are telling people, please recalculate how much I am worth. Treat me as an equal. The next thing we're allowed to do when we stand is what? Stand against injustice. We're supposed to stand oppositely against injustice. Okay. Um, by allowing yourself to suffer so that you can expose injustice, you shock the person's conscience to rethink what they are doing. Now, that was, Jesus used the shock thing always. He like escalated his parables. It's just to bring an injustice into light. Now, the walking one, everyone knows. You remember a teaching ever heard from this? If someone forces you to do a mile, you're supposed to do a mile as a Jewish citizen. So if a Roman soldier forces you to do a mile, what does Jesus say? Double it up. Add one more. Okay. So imagine you're going to town, you're walking with your children, and this Roman brute comes and he forces you to carry the things that are on the horse because the horse needs to rest. So he's making you carry the stuff the horse normally carries, or he needs to rest. And by law, they put a cap on it. Remember, putting a cap on it because people will always escalate. They said just 1 mile. So now you have to say, okay, I really don't want to do this. If I'm not early enough, the sale from Woolies will be over. The Spar will be out of stock. Whatever the Jews had in their time, the market will be closed. But still, you say, okay, here I am. You're forcing me to do something. You are forcing me to do something I don't want. But when I give you another mile, you're not allowed to force me for that mile. I'm giving you something you need. You see how that's countercultural? You're not taking something from me if I'm giving it to you. You see, there's a slight difference. Now, the person that was from a dominating upper space that came down to you has no right for an extra mile. But you're allowed to give it because it's your extra mile. He's not taking your dignity. You're giving something he needs. And sometimes that's a difficult space. Sometimes that's a difficult space. Understanding when is it time to say, you're not taking this from me anymore, but I'm giving it to you. You can't take it away from me. It's mine. That's an interesting mindset Jesus is cultivating. When the mile was taken from you, it was something that is stolen. But when something is given, it's generosity. And it's a mindset we need to farm, grow, nurture in ourselves. Often we are victims because things are taken. And if you can stay a victim, you can go to the market and say, can you believe they forced me to walk a mile? Or you can go to the market and be fine and at peace in your heart because they did not take anything you did not give freely. You see how that's different? It's how it's different. It's just counter. So let's do a quick summary. We land this plane. 1, the slapping, turning the cheek, the non-violent way to oppose, to antihistamine, the non-violent way. What does that do? It forces the opposition to reevaluate the relationship. It forces the other person to reevaluate how they are treating you. That's a Christian biblical way to take a stand. I'm not going to step back, be less, be afraid or cower, but I am going to force you to reevaluate what you are thinking about me. Now, think where you can apply that in relationships, business, family. That's a difficult one, but that's doable. You agree with me? You can start to create plans in your life where you are going to change the way you stand and resist to certain members of maybe at work, family, anywhere else, business. The second way we are told to oppose is the cloak thing. force the opposition to reevaluate the system. You think it's fair what you are doing. You think this is fine. How difficult is that one? Think in a relationship where you are having conflict, and when opposing in a correct way, you're opposing and asking the question, do you think this road we're on now, the currently where we are heading and how we're handling this situation, do you think it's fair? That's opposition. That's a difficult one. The last one is the walk a mile thing. Do you know who was forced to walk a mile in the Bible? It's extremely nice how Jesus was the one who said, just walk a mile. And then when he was crucified, Simon of Cyrene had to walk a mile. He had to carry Jesus' cross for a mile. It's actually interesting how that just comes into play again. A follower of Jesus had to do what Jesus said you should do. And now we all envy Simon of Cyrene. How honorable would it have been to walk a mile? To give something to someone who gave me everything. That's an awesome mindset to have. So the walking a mile forces the opposition to evaluate that I'm making space to help you. So you took something from me, but you didn't take it, I gave it. Now, I'm not the victim anymore, I'm the generous one. It cost you something, definitely, because you're now walking 3.2 kilometers, 2 miles. Nothing from opposition comes free. It's not easy, it's not cheap, it's going to cost you something. But opposition is reacting in a countercultural way. It's not opposing people for your own justice, but opposing counterculturally for the kingdom. Now, when we look at this and you think about what Jesus did and how he did what he did, can you see how many examples he gave us? When he was in the Sanhedrin with the Pharisees and the Sadducees, when he was being treated like this, when he was with Pontius the Pilate. Glad someone caught that. What does Pontius say? He says, don't you know I can order this and you can die? Don't you know I have your life in my hand? And Jesus says, you have nothing in your hand if the Father doesn't give it. You have no authority if it was not given to you. He gives like real examples of how to oppose, but in humility. He was not opposing because he wanted to get free. He was opposing because he was standing anti-histamine, countercultural. So for us as a community to be kingdom orientated and kingdom mindset driven, we need to resist. You can't allow things in your life to continue the way they are continuing. Okay. It's your responsibility to resist. And your responsibility is to resist in humility. Because that's the only way Jesus did it. If you look at Paul, which was a close second to how to respond in humility, he was not easily shook. Hy was nie op sy bek geval nie. What's a nice English expression for that? He wasn't afraid to say what was on his mind. Yeah, he wasn't afraid to say what was on his mind. He wasn't easily intimidated. He had a sharp tongue, that guy. But he was really, really humble. Then you get that thing where Peter comes and Peter eats with all the Gentiles, and then the Jews come from Jerusalem, and Peter is like, oh no, I'm not going to eat with the Gentiles because that's not the Jewish thing to do. And then Peter goes and he eats with the Jews, and Paul is like, dude, what are you doing? That's like you're double-minded. I'm going to call you out. I'm going to oppose what you are doing because this system is not correct. I want you to reevaluate how you see them. Are they less or are they more? I want you to reevaluate that they are equals. And you see this interesting constant conflict Paul has with people. It's because he understands we need to oppose, but we need to oppose counterculturally. So when you read the Bible and when you think of any of these guys that are reacting counterculturally, understand that that is what we were called to. It's not them being special. It's them just doing the status quo, the normal, the standard. But we've let it slip in Christianity, where we allow ourselves to be the floor mats, the doormats, the thresholds. We get stepped on. We're not supposed to be stepped on. We're supposed to, when we are stepped on, react correctly. To oppose, say, this is not me, this is not how you're supposed to treat. Calling out the good in each other. And sometimes people will respond wrong. 90% of the time, people will respond wrong because people aren't used to people opposing them. People are used to getting away. And that will escalate into something not nice. And that's what you sign up for. You sign up for the suffering. Blessed are those who are persecuted. Do you know how to easily get persecuted? Drink your antihistamine, 3 in the morning, 3 in the night. That's how you get persecuted. You know how to get persecuted because in South Africa it's difficult to get persecuted because there's no religious laws that says you can't. There's easy ways to get persecuted. When you're in a queue and someone is spewing curse words like crazy, you think to yourself, oh my soul, thank you so much. I get this chance to be countercultural. And you don't say, you ugly, ugly, vile person, do you kiss your mother with that mouth? That's not what you say. How do you react? You're asking him to reevaluate the value of the people around him. You're going to turn the other cheek. You're telling him, sir, that's not an applicable way or proper way to speak. There's people around you. Maybe they don't wish to be vulgarized by your words. It is going to cause conflict, especially if you're in GWK's ry and it's a boereoomie. He's not going to be impressed. Okay? But it's okay. Yeah, you turn the other cheek beforehand because he has like this big boerewors fingers and he's going to smack you. But it's okay. Blessed are the persecuted. We'd like to be blessed. Who agrees? We'd like to be blessed. I'm giving you a recipe for blessings. Oh, we should write a new book. How to be blessed in 5 easy steps. Say to someone, you're not allowed to do that here, sir. Please stop smoking. This is a non-smoking zone. Did you know that's offensive to people? Did you know that's fair? Because people are allowed to breathe in healthy air. It is what it is. You can be blessed, but you should choose to be blessed. Let us pray. Thank you, Lord, for your word. It is a lamp unto our feet. It is a light for our eyes. It enlightens us to who you really are. Thank you for all the views of your character we find in the Bible. You say you are gracious and you are compassionate, you are slow to anger. You say you are rich and abounding in steadfast love. You say all these things, but still you say you are a righteous and just God. So Lord, I pray that you help us not to be fluffy Christians. all soft and cuddly, but that we be offensive people, offensive to a culture that has accepted that it has the right to enforce what it wants to enforce. Offensive where people say, I can choose what I choose and I can choose to treat people the way I choose to treat people. Thank you that we can see that Jesus in humility offended a lot of people, but not for himself, for the kingdom. Thank you, Lord, that we start to hold your word up as a standard and not use the standard of the culture we are living in. Not even using the standard of the culture we grew up in. Not using an excuse like saying, I'm an Afrikaner, we're supposed to be nice and quiet. Or I'm this or I'm that. But Lord, that we will be the ones to offend the unjust, the ones to protect those who cannot protect themselves, the ones to speak up when someone needs someone to speak up. We ask this because we're not able to do this out of our own and maintain hearts that are righteous against you, towards you. We ask this because we need you to show us what righteousness looks like, what responding correctly looks like. Help us, Lord. Amen.